Hello and welcome to Newsfeed, your daily dose of what people are talking about online. Now, the first ever Olympic esports champions have been crowned in Singapore. But if you think you can win an Olympic gold for games like Dota or League of Legends, we're not quite there yet. The 10 categories players were competing in during the landmark Esports Week were mainly virtual versions of physical sports like archery, baseball, motorsport, and dance.
The winner, first place of this series, Dina!
This is for all the women that play video games, that play Just Dance. You are capable, and you're worth it.
It's also been deployed by the other two riders, but look at Bieterhead go here as it's Bates who's been at the front. Time to move.
More than 130 participants from all over the world competed in 10 virtual sporting categories, such as cycling or taekwondo. But while the Olympic Esports Week has been lauded for being an important initiative to include gaming and esports in the actual Olympics in the future, last week's tournament has been criticized by some prominent gamers. They say it doesn't represent actual esports, as in popular games like Counter-Strike, Dota, and Valorant. In its defense, the International Olympic Committee says it's because first-person shooter games go against its values, and instead it wants to develop virtual versions of sports.
So virtual sport and the use of virtual sport is one of our 15 key strategic goals in the Olympic agenda. It's really about using technology to reach out to young people around the world. And as we see technology grow and develop year on year, it becomes even more powerful as a tool for reaching out to the next generation. Here we've seen that technology come together with sport, 10 competitions, all these exhibitions and free-to-play zones going on around us. So it's really an effective way of reaching out to young people around the world to promote the Olympic movement and promote sport.
Professor Andy Mia joins us now from Manchester. He's a professor of science, communication, and future media. Thanks so much for joining us today, Professor. Now, there's been some controversy over the categories at the Olympic Esports Week. Some gamers saying it's not exactly representative of the gaming market. Would you say the criticism is warranted?
I think historically, ever since the Olympic movement's been connected to the esports world, it's been a controversial discussion. I think certainly some of the biggest esports titles out there are not part of this Olympic Esports Week, but I think you have to take a long perspective on it and look at how esports is evolving. And many of the activities in Olympic Esports Week really are using cutting edge technology, which are probably the future of esports. So I'd say watch this space, because actually that relationship is getting stronger. And actually the program reflected in Singapore this week is actually broadly reflecting the Olympic values. So physical activity, participation, inclusivity. And I think historically the esports world hasn't been as inclusive as it would like. So this is, I think, an important step forwards. And there are some exciting, fun activities, a bit like the beginning of the Olympic Games, where it's not quite as serious, but a beginning, I think, of a big process.
Right, so a nice step forward for the esports industry. Now, esports, even though it's lucrative, worth billions annually, is still not perceived by sports people as real sports. So could the Olympic event actually help change perceptions?
I think having esports in the Olympics is absolutely crucial, not least because young people are really struggling to manage their digital lives, and having physical activity part of that's really important. But actually, most people still don't know what esports is. And if you watch the program from Singapore this week and see virtual triathlon, virtual table tennis, all of which involve physical activity, I think it'd be hard to come away and think this isn't sport. So I think that debate is changing significantly, and the inclusion of the Olympic movement within it is a huge part of that, especially when you look at the sports federations who are now seeing a way into esports where previously they haven't.
Yeah, Andy, you're right. You really were seeing people, athletes, break out in a sweat at that event in Singapore. So with events like this, could we soon see esports included in the actual Olympics?
I think this debate has been there since the beginning of this conversation. And if you look at the history of the Olympic Games, it's always been difficult to get new activities onto the Olympic program. I think the relationship is closer. I think that increasingly sports, traditional sports, will find ways of integrating digital elements into their sports participation. But actually, there may be a space for a completely different tournament. And that might be the natural evolution of the Olympic Games, to not have esports in the traditional program, but to have its own competition. That might be the best way forward, I think.
Thank you, Andy, Mia, for those insights. We look forward to seeing how the industry progresses in the coming years. As the sun went down on Glastonbury Festival on Sunday night, British fans said goodbye to one of the country's biggest music stars. Elton John played his final UK performance, chugging out hit after hit to a record audience of over 100,000 fans. It was an emotional end to a festival weekend that also saw performances by the Arctic Monkeys, Lizzo, Blondie, Cat Stevens, and Guns N' Roses. But the iconic music event was criticized for the disproportionate number of male performers. Almost twice as many men compared to women took to the various stages. There were 182 male acts, or bands with a higher number of guys in comparison to 100 female acts. Emily Evis, one of the festival's organizers, had promised parity across the weekend, but ultimately moaned there is an industry pipeline problem. But overall, the 200,000 ticket holders went home happy despite the cost.
Let's do the sums. First, you'll need a ticket, and that's £335 plus £5 booking fee. And if you're thinking that sounds like a lot, it does include all of these things. And next, travel, and you'll either be driving, in which case you need to take the miles from your place to Glastonbury Festival, double them, and then times them by about 15p to get the price of the petrol. And don't forget, you'll need a £60 car park pass in your windscreen. You can buy one of those on the gate if you haven't bought one already. But you can reduce that dramatically by bringing all of your drinks in from the supermarket outside. Yes, unlike other big festivals, Glastonbury lets you bring all of your own drinks wherever you want and drink them wherever you want. A note on food, you'll either pay about £4 for an artisan cheesy chips like this, or about £8 for something more substantial. But as well as being able to take your own drinks anywhere, you can of course take your own food as well, and you could cater for every meal. And at a minimum, I would suggest getting a tent, a camping chair, something to sleep on, a sleeping bag, a mallet, and some lanterns. To buy all of this first-time camping equipment with the emergency phone charger, I estimate is going to cost you about £170 to £200. And as for how much money to take there, well, that very much depends on you. And if you bear in mind that trick I mentioned earlier, where you take all of your food and drink from the supermarket, then it could really cost you just the cost of those things. I know a lot of people like to budget enough to buy a dinner every day and some lunches, and then they self-cater the rest.
Speaking of the cost of attending concerts, could it be that Taylor Swift and her army of Swifties are keeping the American economy in the black? Well, the U.S., like many countries, is teetering into recession. While rising interest rates and high inflation are squeezing household budgets, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour is generating a vast amount of income, not just for her, but other businesses as well, as fans splash the cash on tickets, outfits and costumes, merch, food and drink, and travel. Online research group Question Pro crunched the numbers and came up with some incredible data. The Eras Tour is expected to generate over $5 billion. That's more than the gross domestic product of 50 countries. And seeing the superstar is not a cheap night out. The average concert goer spends over $1,300 once everything like travel, merch, and food is taken into consideration. And while that's as much as some people pay for a holiday, a staggering 91% said they'd do it all over again. Local businesses are licking their lips when the Eras Tour bus rolls into town. For example, occupancy in Chicago hotels reached 97% when Swift played her 3 shows there. And Las Vegas wallowed in tourism numbers at levels not seen since the pandemic.
It's Eras Tour day. I am going to see Taylor Swift in the Eras Tour, and I'm so hyped up right now, and I'm so excited. I have been a huge Taylor Swift fan ever since her debut album. I was jamming out to Our Song and Picture to Burn and everything from like such a young age, and I've never been able to afford tickets. So I am very blessed to be able to go to this concert, and I'm so happy that I was able to get tickets. Getting ready, I am doing sort of kind of my hair before we leave to go to the Airbnb, and I am doing most of my makeup as well, just because I wanted to get it mostly out of the way. I really just want to like enjoy today, like just enjoy everything that today has to offer, like every single experience.
And another sort of performance to get excited about, DJ sets. Although the world of DJing is still one very much dominated by men, while there is more female representation now, women DJs still have a tough time breaking into the industry and making a name for themselves. But an all-women DJ collective in China is trying to change that. Sarah reports.
It's a club night in Shanghai, and DJ Breezy is dancing to her own beat. By day, she's a legal professional. But at night, she trades in her legal pad for a mixer, some sick beats, and a dose of feminism. Breezy is one of many women DJs in China tired of the nightlife industry's double standards, where a woman's appearance can matter as much as her musical skill.
比如说，女音乐人经常会被
Women in the industry are often judged by their physical attributes, for example, their looks or other characteristics that are considered female. But male artists are mostly regarded for their music, so there's an aspect of gender inequality here.
Breezy is part of a music collective called Scandal, which champions women producers.
My all-female music label is called Scandal. I hope it'll be able to properly strengthen women's visibility in underground music. This way, there can be more female producers in the electronic music scene.
Eloise Fan regularly holds workshops to teach women how to DJ and produce music. She says she co-founded Scandal to make the Chinese nightclub scene safer and more welcoming towards women.
There are a lot of strange requirements for women. For example, one of the artists from our label told me she had previously been asked for her chest, waist, and hip measurements for a show. I hope that one day women won't need to wear cleavage-revealing clothes, short skirts, or wear heavy makeup and still receive performance opportunities and be equal with male performers.
Scroll through social media and it looks like female DJs in China are making bank. But many say they have a harder time kickstarting and sustaining their careers in an industry where men are still the gatekeepers. DJs like Empress Cici feel they have to work so much harder than their male counterparts.
For talented female DJs to be able to make a name for themselves, it's much harder than male DJs, who started at the same time and are at the same level. For many of us, it takes much longer, and you're expected to socialize more and really sell yourself as a DJ.
But it's all in a hard day's work in this underground space, where class is in session and women are learning how to develop an ear for musical composition. And the fruits of the collective's labor can be heard on its latest mixtape, aptly titled Shanghai Dreams.
And that's our show. Find us on YouTube and do subscribe to our channel. Bye and see you soon.